So, Kennedy-isms explained, to give you some analogies. Chad used Kennedy-isms to bait me. He would lecture all night long, hours and hours, teaching me how his former coworkers at the Florida State's Attorney's Office in Orlando, Kim Mann and Karen Bankowitz, how they not only fucked up the Beasley case and let that predator walk with 30 years probation on sex offender probation after winning multiple motions that guaranteed day for day prison time, maximum prison time as a repeat reoffender. So he went into all that detail to, number one, win my confidence, to make me think that he really was working for me. But it also was, the more I knew about how they victimized me, how corrupt they were, the more power he had over them. If I don't understand what they did, he's got no leverage with them. Me would be representative of we the people. So when the Kennedys would publicly talk about civil rights violations or Israel and AIPAC, which was called something else back in the day, not registering as a foreign lobbying or foreign lobby or whatever it was, he had no leverage over his Zionist partners in crime, the mob, if the people didn't understand what were going on. You see what I'm saying? No harm, no foul. So I knew something was wrong, that I shouldn't have gone to prison, but I didn't know how. I didn't understand what the hell happened. The more he taught me, he knew I was going to put it in a letter. He told me to write the letter requesting a Florida federal. I'm going to have to go back and find that letter. It was a Florida Federal Chapter 119, Florida Federal Chapter 119 records request. And when you read the letter, you can tell it's his uppity, white, privileged education. It's not my verbiage. And that's not my vernacular. And he even signed it the way, now he made me sign my name physically, but the way his closing signature, thank you so much for your consideration. I'll have to go back and find my scan of it in my Google Photos, but he said they're going to know I wrote it because I sign all my letters to all of them this way. So there's 1,000 letters from Chad Cronin to the various people, prosecutors at the courthouse with the exact same closing. How the fuck could I have known that? So that's how he was blackmailing them. Kennedy-isms. It's a shakedown. So the more he told me about what they did wrong and then had me sign a letter that he ultimately went over and wrote and put his own little Chad Cronin-isms in there so they know he knew. You see what I'm saying? So then they knew to go to him, that they knew that he had the goods on them. So they would come, and he ended up getting offered some, he used the information on the fraud by some bogus homeless legal program by Florida A&M College, and they were pretending to give homeless people at the Florida Coalition for the Homeless, where his mother, Patricia Cronin, was affiliated with some education program. I think her organization was called Helping Hand, and they were pretending to make sure underprivileged kids and and immigrants and children of color got proper education despite of being homeless. They worked with Linda Ferrer and I can't remember the director's name right now, some lady with red hair. She was kind of small, but her husband was a big guy, and they were basically the big wigs at the Coalition for the Homeless, at least for the immediate. There were some other people, there was board members, and then there was some other executive director that had won an Emmy for some little 20-minute documentary he made years ago. Some African-American guy, a shill. But anyway, Chad used that information about those frauds to blackmail Florida A&M into funding a free legal clinic for him. And one of the other attorneys who was supposed to be helping me, he paid her off by giving her a position. I don't know if it ever went through because I ended up blowing the whistle on him about his addiction and his abuses and the fact that I met him in AA, and so then they ended up yanking all that. It blew back. He double crossed them, and then I helped them double cross him. But all of that was Kennedy-isms. So, the president, so Chad Cronin's an attorney who was supposed to represent me. The Kennedys were the president who's supposed to represent everybody, including the minorities. The more information the minorities and the rest of we, the people, know about how we're being abused, gave them more power to blackmail whoever was in bed with Israel. And the Kennedys made the sorry mistake of thinking that once they were president, they had absolute power. Because they're now in command of the most sophisticated army in the world. They have assassins like my father and SEAL Team 6, 1 through 6, 1 through 12, and they can do anything. Problem is, they used everybody, lied to them, got them to do their dirty work, and then threw them under the bus. Oh, we're going to bring the troops home out of Vietnam, and we're going to make sure all the veterans are well taken care of. No, they didn't. They were profiting from the Vietnam War. Bob McNamara lot. They used everybody, not only the mob, but the military, and double-crossed the mob and the CIA who got them elected. Murdered Marilyn Monroe. But Kennedy was trafficking his own 19-year-old intern. But back then, people couldn't understand that level of fucking depravity. That and the abuse of women was totally okay. Women were just seen as property, so everybody was willing to forgive Martin Luther King for his indiscretions, which we know about because RFK authorized Hoover to do that illegal surveillance of Martin Luther King, which there's a big difference between Martin Luther King having affairs with women who openly, he was a big figure. He was doing God's work. Of course, that's a natural aphrodisiac. Women throwing themselves at him is different than Kennedy forcing his 19-year-old intern to suck some guy's dick while he watched and was having an affair with her on a regular basis and murdering Marilyn Monroe. Just because they just think of the Kennedys as the guys who wanted to use the mob to, they were poor people who weren't part of the white power construct, but wanted to be part of the white power construct. And then double-cross the white power construct, thinking, oh, now we're president. And the white power construct said, oh, no, you're not. We're not the fucking ones to play with, and squashed them like fucking bugs and did it very publicly to make an example for the next motherfucker that they got elected, thinking that once they got elected, they were actually going to run the show. That was the Kennedys' mistake. They thought that once they got elected president and appointed attorney general, that they had all the power, that they were now the whole white power construct, corrupt white power construct of genocidal, child raping murderers who actually had had a long history of doing their own wet work, doing their own actual physical raping, doing their own physical beatings, and their own who have the training to do violence. The Kennedys never did any real fucking violence. They were pussy ass bitches who think, bitch slapping little motherfuckers. All this, but really ain't got. They were wannabe mobsters. White privileged wannabe mobsters. Being a patriarchal white privileged prick and being an actual mobster who can carry out a hit's two different things. There's different levels of, just think of them as low-key domestic abusers who wanted to climb in bed with real hardcore domestic abusers who will fucking snap your neck in a minute, and thinking they were going to use those people, and then once they became president, they were going to get, just use those violent predators any way they wanted, and there wasn't going to be any consequences. And those violent predators said, okay, including their military, their special forces, trained assassins that they sent to crawl through fucking swamps in Vietnam. Yeah, JFK was a fucking war veteran. He was a fucking admiral on a fucking ship. Yeah, the ship went down and he saved everybody, but he wasn't spending day after day after day in the goddamn Vietnamese fucking jungle, dealing with snakes and mosquitoes and landmines and watching people die all the time. Vietnamese using weapons that Bob McNamara was profiting from selling to the Vietnamese through third parties. Not Bob McNamara personally, but the corporations in whom McNamara and probably the Kennedys and a whole lot of others owned stock, who didn't sell directly to the Vietnamese, but sold those same weapons to the Vietnamese through third parties. And then they wonder why they got killed by their own military. Because whoever did the shooting had to be sharpshooters trained by Navy Special Forces or some special forces. They fucked around and they found out with the wrong goddamn group. They were not radical civil rights, this or that, any more than Chad Cronin was. And remember, Chad Cronin was the president of CF Gala, Central Florida Gay and Lesbian Law Association, where Morgan & Morgan, Andrea Morgan of Morgan & Morgan, was an attorney who threatened me in an email. Bobby Kennedy worked with Morgan & Morgan on something. That right there was a fucking conflict. Maybe Hochul and Cousy realized that, and they went along with Bobby Kennedy in as much as they could, and they were waiting on me. And they gave me plenty of signals that he was under investigation, and they just reconfirmed it not too long ago when I posted about his little female PI approaching me and trying to gaslight me at the fucking transit center. They confirmed, yeah, we know she's one of his. So the Kennedys, it's a wrap. But they didn't come right out and say it because that would have been tampering. They thought they were going to let me figure it out. And I had already figured it out. That's why I was trying to tell them, you need to get secure comms, you need to get secure comms. Just because I'm blowing all this smoke and defending Bobby Kennedy publicly doesn't mean it's accurate. Bobby Kennedy, supposed to be an AA in recovery. Oh, I'm all about AA. What's the first fucking thing they tell you in AA? Don't bullshit a bullshitter. You tried to bullshit a bullshitter, you stupid, white, privileged, patriarchal, rapist, woman murdering, Jim Crow, lynch mob loving fuck. Your fucking nephew raped and killed some lady and you tried to pin it on two men of color from Brooklyn who didn't even have means, motive, or opportunity to do any of that. He thinks to thine own self be true means worship his white privileged ass. No, it means in AA is all about service. You help people, but you don't help people to the point that it hurts you. You only help them in as much as it helps them and it helps you. But if it takes away from your well-being, like I've got people, like if I need, like let's say I've only got $40 and I need to eat and I need other stuff for camp or whatever, and I also am going to need pain management. And somebody calls me and says, hey, I've got 8 bupe, which would normally be $40. I'm not going to give them my last $40. I'm going to help them out. I'll buy 1 or 2, but I'm going to keep the rest of that money for me. I'll help them out a little bit, but not to it ain't going to hurt me in any way. And I'm terminally ill. I just almost died 2 nights ago. Thank God we found a new antibiotic that works much faster. And there's antibiotics that work even faster than that. Honor Health, when I was going septic and my whole face had blown up and I had an abscess in the roof of my mouth, the cancer had metastasized to both sinuses, and I have no voice, and they hooked me up to some IV antibiotic that literally started working in minutes. It's some shit that they only give to stage 4 cancer patients. And I took a picture of the 2 bags. It was a combination of 2 different antibiotics, IV antibiotics. And they came in, the fentanyl didn't even help. They gave me a big old shot of fentanyl, and it didn't do nothing for the pain. But eventually, the first shift, day shift, that was actually helping me, was actually making accurate medical records and doing their job. They came in and said, is this helping you at all? And I'm like, yeah, those antibiotics are working fast. I'm already feeling better. And then once that shift went home, they brought in a bunch of shills to come in and threaten me and say they were sending me home. I said, that's a big mistake, because I recorded all these other doctors and the first shift telling me the truth. And he just literally started dripping in sweat. Well, what do you want me to do? I said, your fucking job. Your job. Quit gaslighting me. You guys come in here and you see some homeless, stinky retard. Motherfucker, I was invited to join the Men's Association. I'm supposed to be going to a Men's Association convention in Scottsdale on Saturday, which I think was October 19th or October 17th of 2017. I said, former Mensa proctor, Dr. Barbara DeBoule, a speech pathologist, PhD professor at ASU, invited me, and I showed him where she wrote her phone number down so I could call her so she could come pick. She says, I'm going to take you there myself. I'm going to arrange for you to have that interview. So stop acting like I'm some idiot that you're going to fucking... I said, too many people have already told me the truth, and I recorded it, so it ain't going to be like my word against theirs. So he went ahead and admitted me, but he was dripping sweat. He broke a sweat right then. So how the fuck do you motherfucker... So now I'm going to change the conversation to Epstein's partners of crime, including Weinberger and Buffalo PD, or excuse me, not Buffalo, well, yeah, Buffalo PD, Burlington PD, UVM. How the fuck do you motherfuckers really think that this bullshit you're putting in my records is going to fly? Too many people have already snitched you the fuck out years ago. But you really think you're going to convince Cousy that I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist and I don't have cancer and I'm just malingering for narcotics? God damn it, you've got the fucking medical records from Honor Health, from that very goddamn ER visit. with all the fucking receipts, the goddamn radiology reports, the CAT scans, the blood work, the prescriptions